Hello friends! For this episode of Pickin for Progress, I sat down with my old buddy and mentor, Mr. Rich Hartness. I met Rich through our mutual love of string band music, and through the years I've been fortunate to learn about his journey. Speaking with Rich in preparation for this video was a tremendous lesson in compassion and love, which inspired the song that you'll hear at the end. Rich lost his sight in an accident as a teenager, but immediately embraced blindness as a VIP adventure and foray into finding creative solutions. The advent of new information technologies like the microcomputer over the past 40 years has greatly liberated him, and in turn, he has dedicated his career to helping other visually impaired people be more independent.
Rich, you have been working as a software engineer and architect for the Metrolina Association for the Blind since 1990?
Yeah, Metrolina Association for the Blind is a nonprofit whose primary mission is to help people with visual impairment learn to flourish with those conditions. It's a place around Charlotte where people can get redirected on how to go about living life and not take 10 years to figure it out, more like I did on my own.
So you're using your skill set, having learned your whole life how to live in this world as a blind person, and you're making it easier for other people.
Thankfully, I was born with a hopeful spirit. It didn't take long to begin to discover that I could still do things. I had a choice. It was either be bummed out and negative or try to embrace possibilities.
One possibility that you embraced, which I find amazing, is you learned Morse code, but you also learned how to build and repair ham radios without sight.
You can solder as a blind person. You know, you heat up your soldering iron, you get it hot enough to melt the lead. You can touch it when it's hot enough to do that. You just don't touch it long.
In the age of social media where we are right now, we're able to communicate with people all over the world, but you got your license to go on air in 1969, within the same year that you went blind.
Yeah, February to October, I was on the air with my novice license, tapping out Morse code.
In North Carolina, schools started to become integrated in 1968, which was the year before you went blind. Do you recall any incident where other students or teachers treated African American students badly?
The thing that really stood out for me was in my fourth grade class, one of my classmates was a black girl who was very nice. And I recall one day, I don't know, she didn't have her assignment, and the teacher made her stand up and just chastised her relentlessly, on and on, way after she was in tears. I just remember feeling so troubled and sorry for the humiliation she experienced. You know, she never did that to any of the other kids, white kids.
And you, before your accident, had already decided to stay in public schools while many white kids were switching to private schools because of integration. And then after your accident, you had another decision to make, and you decided to not attend a school for the blind, but to stay in the public school system. What motivated those decisions?
When the talk of integration first started and there was buzz about a private school opening it up, and that's where a lot of my friends would go, I thought then that it made more sense to stay in the public mainstream and just get used to people that I would be encountering in life outside of school. And then when blindness came along, I wanted the same thing I think anybody would, to stay with old familiar, with family and friends. And thankfully the school system was willing to do that, to give it a try.
You became blind at a time when society didn't accommodate blind children.
Right, it wasn't mandated. The most immediate need for functioning in school that 7th grade year to finish it out was being able to read and write, and I couldn't do either independently. I relied on my mother and dad and my brother to fill in and write for me, and I used that approach through the rest of high school and early college. Eventually, I really hungered for independence and started relying on the tape recorder. Interestingly, it was through recording old-time musicians that I cultivated the appreciation of the tape recorder and what it could do. I'd bring those tapes home, listen to them, and I would hear things I didn't hear when I was there. I learned fiddling by starting and stopping the tapes over and over.
13, you were out hunting quail with your dad and a family friend, and then your father accidentally shot you. Though you miraculously lived through that accident, he found out that you were totally blind and that it was permanent. You and your dad are still best friends.
He's been an incredible support, and how he has been able to put the accident into perspective and to move on and continue living is just an incredible accomplishment and inspiration to me.
At one point you said that in the accident it was more like he shot himself.
Yeah, and I really didn't understand the depth of that until I became a parent. I got the easy part of the puzzle, so I have much greater respect and admiration for his strength and heart.
For the past 23 years, well, at least until the pandemic, you've been commuting regularly back and forth between Greensboro and Charlotte by train. By yourself as a blind person, what's that like?
With my smartphone, which is accessible, it's so easy to be independent now. It's awesome. Periodically, when I'm waiting in the station, I might want to go to the ticket counter and speak to the agent. And 9 times out of 10, the people who check in with me to see what I need and if I need any help are African American. And it's just blown me away. It's been consistent.
Why is it that you think that African Americans are so much more likely to help you?
Well, it would just be an assumption on my part. But my guess is they're more accustomed to looking after or looking out for people in vulnerable positions than us white folk. I've always been extremely grateful for the kind support that I've gotten from African American people all over the country.
I'd like to ask, what are some of the greatest benefits of being blind?
Not having to look at you.
I'm not that ugly, man.
Not being distracted by appearances. You know, being forced to evaluate people on what they do is actually more telling. It's also shown me how incredibly supportive and generous people are willing to be to help.
We've discussed the pitfalls of division-based politics, me and you. Do you think that we have typecast one another to an irreparable extreme?
No. There's been a lot of name calling and really ugly divisiveness. We need to balance the equation and spend more personal time together with people who we don't agree with.
What's on the line in the elections this fall, and how do we work with the system that we're currently in?
Getting people to stop and listen and empathize, that's so important. What I'll be studying all the candidates for is compassion, building bridges, people who can help pull us back together, restore more confidence, integrity, and respect for each other. I'm certainly interested in doing all I can to build bridges. Love and gratitude to you and everybody, and our pathway forward more empathetically together.
All around this country, from the east to the west, everywhere I go I find the same old mess. Good-hearted people doing the best they can in a mucked up system that don't give a damn. But I'll hold your hand if you hold mine. Life on earth is borrowed time, and as long as we're living, we ought to strive to love along the way. Get it, Rich? what we need is change. Let our heels hit the pavement and the peace flag wave. Clear across the mountains or the prairies wide. There's a new day at dawning, but we can't waste time. I'll hold your hand if you hold mine. Life on earth is borrowed time, and as long as we're living, we ought to strive to love along the way. Hear the sacred spirit come across the strings. Sisters and brothers, won't you sing with me? 'Cause there ain't no greater force on earth than unity. I'll hold your hand and you hold mine.